When a valuable object slips off a finger and disappears into the mud, a physical event occurs. The bond between item and owner is severed. Common law dictates a straightforward baseline rule for this scenario. A person who finds a piece of lost property acquires title to it against everyone in the world except the true owner. But property disputes rarely involve the true owner. They are typically long gone, leaving a vacuum in the chain of title. Into this vacuum step two competing parties: the individual who physically found the object and the occupier of the land where it was discovered. Because the absolute owner is missing, the court cannot award perfect title. Instead, the law evaluates a hierarchy of relative possessory claims to decide which of these two parties has the superior right. This diagram illustrates how courts resolve conflicts using a multi-layered decision tree. The first vector is spatial orientation at discovery, buried in earth or resting on the surface. The second examines the agency of the finder. By passing the facts of a new dispute through these specific spatial and agency gates, we map the exact legal outcome. Determining property rights without the true owner relies on a predictable cascade through established logic gates. The sorting process begins by asking if the lost item is physically attached to or embedded within the property itself. In the 1996 case Waverly Borough Council v. Fletcher, a metal detectorist was excavating in a park when he discovered a medieval gold brooch. The brooch was buried 9 inches beneath the topsoil. Retrieving it required the detectorist to physically dig into the earth. This diagram shows the legal rule for such discoveries. Objects found embedded in or attached to the land automatically belong to the freeholder or occupier of that land. The rationale is strict. Physical integration into the soil creates an irrefutable presumption that the landowner already possessed the item, even if they were unaware of its existence. Items resting loosely on the surface do not benefit from this automatic spatial presumption. The court treats the earth and everything physically locked within it as a single, indivisible legal entity owned by the occupier. Now look at the right side of the diagram, addressing objects found unattached, merely resting on the surface of a property. In the 1982 case, Parker v. British Airways Board, a passenger discovered a gold bracelet lying loose on the floor of an executive airport lounge. To defeat the finder's claim here, the occupier must pass the manifest intention doctrine. Manifest intention requires objective, observable proof that the occupier exerts strict control over both the physical premises and everything dropped inside it. British Airways failed this test because of their operational protocols. While they restricted entry to the executive lounge, they lacked a systematic lost and found policy or regular searches for dropped items, negating their claim of total control over the contents of the room. Because the airline failed to demonstrate control, the court awarded title of the bracelet to the passenger who found it. Merely occupying a space does not grant title to the unattached items within it. The occupier must actively enforce a visible perimeter of control. Spatial logic alone does not resolve every dispute. We must account for situations where the finder is an employee operating on their employer's premises. Consider the 1899 case, McDowell v. Ulster Bank, where a bank porter was sweeping the floor after hours and discovered a roll of banknotes. The courts apply a specific standard here, whether the finding occurred strictly within the operational scope of the employee's duties. Sweeping the floors and securing the bank after closing were explicit requirements of the porter's job. This directly tied his discovery of the money to his employment contract. The court ruled in favor of Ulster Bank, denying the porter any claim to the banknotes. The law treats the employee's physical actions as the employer's actions. Functionally, the bank itself is recognized as the finder. When an individual acts strictly under agency, they cease to exist as an independent finder in the eyes of property law. It is a common professional misconception that an employer automatically owns any item an employee finds while on the clock. The 1965 case, Bryan v. Hoare, addresses this paradox. An on-duty police officer conducting crowd control discovered a gold ingot near a public entrance. Unlike the bank porter whose job was to clear and secure the specific interior floor, the officer was performing general public patrol. This creates a critical legal distinction. For the employer to claim title, The employment must be the effective cause of the finding, not just the incidental opportunity. The officer's patrol duties placed him in the physical location of the ingot, but those duties did not cause the act of finding it. Any member of the public walking by could have made the same discovery. Despite being in uniform and actively on duty, the court granted the police officer individual title to the gold ingot. The boundary separating strict duty from incidental presence is exceptionally narrow. An employment contract only captures possessory rights if the act of discovering lost items is inherent to the job description itself. This flowchart represents the complete architecture of the legal decision tree, built from the 4 precedent cases. The initial sorting process checks if the object is physically embedded in the land, triggering an automatic win for the occupier, or resting on the surface. If on the surface, the secondary process evaluates whether the occupier demonstrated a manifest intention to control that specific space and its contents. The final intercept checks for an agency profile, verifying if an employment contract overrides the finder's claim based on effective cause. Applying this exact sequence of logic gates eliminates ambiguity, processing the variables of discovery to output a precise legal determination. Both the spatial vectors and the agency intercepts point to a single conclusion about property law. When the absolute true owner is absent, possession is never a static fact. It is a comparative hierarchy of provable claims, determined entirely by physical location and the scope of human action at the exact moment of discovery.